is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulator test driver.
So it's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's it, 46 watts. That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
Let's go race.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome to the McLaren Shadow Project here, live on the iRacing Esports Network. Coverage brought to you by Racebot TV. Paul Smith here, alongside me is Will Vincent. We have got the grid up on screen already. Marcus Jensen taking pole position. He was the race winner last time at Brands Hatch. Johannes Wallmeyer in second place. Then it's Jace Merrick in third, with Gabriel Ramos in fourth. Manuel Menachini, fifth place on the grid, and Stephen Hardy was the last to set a lap time. Mark Valua and James Wallace and Adam Horwood round out your night car grid here today. And well, as I say, I am joined by Will Vincent. Marcus Jensen last week then, Will, he took the victory at Brands Hatch, and he'll be hoping to get enough one here at Circuit Zolder.
He will be. It's a small grid here today, Paul, and that means that this is going to be a very interesting race, because it's more going to be, I think, a lot of time trials going on, especially if your name is Marcus Jensen. As well, the good thing about this race is, however, of course, it counts towards people trying to get themselves the opportunity to go to the finals at McLaren and get themselves a spot on the McLaren esports team.
Yeah, certainly that's a big carrot to be dangling in front of sim racers. And really, I mean, if I wasn't commentating on this, I'd probably be taking part in it, because that is a really good opportunity, that's for sure. But we're getting set. We've got a lap behind the pace car here at the start, and we're just waiting for that time to tick down, and then we'll be getting underway on this pacing lap. And well, we've commented many times, Will, on races around this circuit. It's a tricky circuit to overtake at, but when if you work things right, you can get those moves done.
Yeah, you've got 3 different chicanes here. Arguably the easiest place to overtake is down into the first low chicanes. The second chicane also offers a good opportunity, but turn number 1 here, Paul, isn't actually the best place to overtake, because there's a fast left-hander that then immediately leads into the long right-hand corner, and it isn't really, in Formula cars it's even harder. In a GT car it's possible, it's still not that easy to find a passing opportunity. And also, this track is narrow, and because of the fact this track is narrow, it does mean that inches mean everything.
Certainly do, as the drivers now getting all set on their warm-up lap here. And well, Jensen, as we were saying, on pole position, took the win last week at Brands Hatch. Quite a similar course in terms of the width of the track, but Brands Hatch more of a flowing track than this one here, with much more undulation. So it'll be interesting to see how Marcus adapts his driving to this circuit. A lot of arrive and drive corners. And this first chicane that they're coming up to now can actually catch people out. Those curbs can either send you spinning or even send you up and over, because I tell you what, it's a tough chicane, and brutal curbs there for them.
Indeed. So we are going to get Facebook live stream up for you as soon as you can. Of course, you can't hear that if you're waiting on Facebook, but hopefully all of you guys here on YouTube will have yourself a good evening's worth of racing, because after this we have got ourselves coverage of the 2K World Cup. It will be a double header on the road course and the oval at Twin Ring Motegi, and then later on we've also got ourselves coverage of the final round of the Indy Elite Series. That will be from the Michigan Speedway, 500 miles. And there was a time, Paul, back in 1996 when they tried to have a race at Michigan and at Indianapolis pretty much within the space of 24 hours of each other. Free wedge start at Michigan went horribly wrong, 18 cars out.
Yeah, it's hardly ideal that happening there, and these guys, well, tonight it's going to be some good racing though, I have to say. The Indy Elite always good, and we've also got the 2K World Cup. But right now it's McLaren Shadow into the final chicane, out the final chicane. They're waiting for the green flag drops. Away we go then from the start, and it's Marcus Jensen into an early lead here. All just in one line here in through turn number 1. No incidents happening here as they go into 2. And everybody just needs to behave at the moment and to try and get this job done.
Well, if you're Marcus Jensen, the issue is, Paul, you've got an iRacing which is about 5,000 higher than any other driver on field. It's a case of, is this just a Sunday drive? Can you keep yourself composed for the course of this event? And what else can you do? It is a 20-lap event here today, and Marcus Jensen already has a 1 second advantage because Wallmeyer, this is not Jonas Wallmeyer, this is another Wallmeyer, Johannes, he is already a second back as they go into that second chicane for the first time.
Yep, Johannes there, cutting the curbs. The number 4 car's had a little bit of an issue down at the second chicane, and just went around on the run, under brakes, back end. Oh, they got into the back of the car in front of them. That was Menicini that they got into the back of, giving themselves slow down penalties. A little bit more bumping and barging going on further down your field, but out the front, Marcus Jensen comes across the line. First lap, it's a 20-lap race here as they're coming across the line then, so just 19 more laps to go in this one, and Jensen is not actually pulling away too far in that first lap, but a second is quite a good lead to have here as Wallmeyer just running wide through turn number 1 over the curbs there. And really, everybody's just staying spread out a little bit. They're trying to just get themselves into a groove early on in this one as, well, we've got to retire. Yeah, enough for retirement then. So Mark Villu is out, went off at turn number 1. That's one retirement already in this one. Shame to see a retirement in this race, but it's a brutal track around here, Will.
Yeah, and about that number 4 car as well, I did notice that he had a little bit of argy-bargy down at the start of this event. Before we actually got green, he had himself an incident on that warm-up lap, and a track like Zolder, you can end up getting a little bit of paint scratching on that warm-up lap. It is a full warm-up lap here as well, and because it is so tight, what you normally expect to see is the drivers almost going single file until they get themselves down onto the straightaway right now, where we see Jensen et al. Heading through. But there's that temptation for a lot of people to just go too wide the entire way around the racetrack. I personally, Paul, just prefer to take it single file, a bit like they do in IndyCar, and then line it up in the last corner before you go green.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it is a tricky one. We mentioned about the width of the track here is actually Wallmeyer just closed up a little bit. No, actually, no, lost about half a tenth on that last lap compared to Jensen. But it is a narrow track here, as we mentioned earlier, and we'll talk about overtaking this place because it is very much a thinking driver's track as this one if you want to actually make an overtake work. Yes, you mentioned about the move down into this first chicane, but really, there are other opportunities if you plan it out, and if you look at where the strengths are of the driver in front and where the weaknesses are of the driver in front as well, then you can see how it's going to work and plan that move and see if you make a mistake, get a cut back or sort, and even out that hairpin, the final hairpin before you head to the Jochen Rindt chicane, even though it's not really a chicane, it's a straight, but you can work your way out that hairpin, get a run down towards that final chicane.
Yeah, as we're having a look on board with Wallmeyer, we're having a fantastic look actually. This is the movement inside the cockpit into those final 2 corners, over the curbs and towards the start-finish line once again to put 3 laps into the books. Worth noting that Stephen Hardy started this race, Paul, from pit road. I hate to say he's just here for the SR, but he is currently 15 seconds almost now behind Gabriel Ramos, and that is for, well, actually, I'll take that back. It's not Gabriel Ramos. It is Adam Forward, yes. Yeah. 15 seconds almost behind him.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was best part of 16.5 seconds for him to get out of pit road. So, actually, he had closed up a little bit, although his last lap was almost 2 seconds slower than Adam Horwood on that last lap. But definitely heading towards the chicane here once again, and Wallmeyer certainly not getting embarrassed here, keeping keeping Marcus Jensen honest here, and yes, when you look at their iRating, almost 6,000 iRacing difference between them, and yet Wallmeyer is showing that he can race with Jensen here and keep up with him. Now, is this maybe Jensen just managing his car, just making sure he doesn't make any mistakes, keep it out of the walls, or is it a case of Wallmeyer, okay, he may not have the experience in iRacing, but he's got a bit of pace to him?
He has, and this is the thing that quite often we have a look at the iRating, and a lot of people use iRating as a measure of how good a driver is, and it is one measure, but it's not the only measure. I have seen drivers with 2,000, 2,500 iRating be just as good as some of the World Championship drivers. Of course, one thing that's worth noting is that a lot of these drivers have the opportunity to take part in leagues that doesn't accrue any iRating. As an example, there are certain other events that don't accrue any form of iRating. But for Wallmeyer, he's holding on right now. He's 3.5 tenths of a second back. What Jensen will hope is that Wallmeyer doesn't try and make a big, bold move that will put Jensen's race into jeopardy as Wallmeyer goes wide there on that right-hander before the first chicane.
Yep, little mistake then over the gravel and the grass. Able to carry on though, they lost about 1.5 tenths there from that one. And, well, I will say one thing. 2017 British Touring Car Champion Ashley Sutton, he's only got an iRating of about 1,700.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just goes to show that it isn't the be-all and end-all. It's a good indication of how good a driver is, but it's not the be-all and end-all that some people seem to get stuck up over. But look at how close Wallmeyer is there to Jensen, to the back of that Burst eSport car. Out of the hairpin, heading towards the final chicane once again. Just half a second covering these two here, Will. This is your closest battle on track, and fortunately for us, it's the battle for the lead.
It is indeed so, and we have got a great battle going on for that race lead. We have also got a battle going on a little bit further behind. We'll turn our attention over to that one in a couple of moments' time. But for Johannes Wallmeyer, he is keeping Marcus Jensen honest right now in that #1 machine. And, well, they've had a great season, really. If you think about 2018 for that Burst Esports team, they have had themselves a fantastic season. And for right now, for Marcus Jensen, getting that's game 1 2018, McLaren Shadow, and getting that opportunity will kind of be the icing on the cake for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be quite the fillip, that's for sure. But really, you can't have your sights set on that at the moment. You've got to keep your sights set on this race as you're going along, because a lot of people might think it's a Sunday drive. As actually James Wallace has caught up a bit more to Manuel Menicini as we're going through the right-hander towards the first chicane, so it might be worth just paying attention to this battle, because Wallace has been gaining. He's all over the back, all over the gearbox of that McLaren, these fire-breathing McLarens, the MP4-12C GT3 cars. Down, up over the little rise there, down the hill, through the left-hander, into this hard braking zone, through the right, through the left, through the right. This is where, unfortunately, Gilles Villeneuve had his accident that sadly meant that he was no longer with us back in 1982, wasn't it? Yep. That we sadly lost Gilles Villeneuve. But these drivers fighting it out as, oh, a little mistake from Menicini. That's all the opportunity that Wallace needs. Thank you very much. That's up to 5th place for Wallace.
Yeah, let's get ourselves a second look at that one, shall we? And that was Wallace, and let's just turn that graphic off, and let's just have a look then as they come down into the right-hander. Bugenhoit's corner, just going wide with the #5 machine. It is so easy to do that. I mean, we can often lambast drivers when they do it, but it's a little bit like Canada corner, in my opinion, for me. It's one of these things, you come down into the braking zone, you think you've got enough traction coming in, you don't. And for Mancini, well, he's off the racetrack, down into P6, and he's almost 8 tenths of a second back, Paul.
By the way, you'll want to have a look at a replay of Johannes Wallmeyer through the first chicane just now. He gave a perfect illustration of how brutal these curbs are. He almost went the rear ends flying into the air over those curbs. He's attacking this circuit for everything he can here, Will.
Yes, let's have a look then. Johannes Wallmeyer, he is coming into that first chicane right now, hits 100-meter board. clobbers that second part of that curve. I actually just want to have a look from one of our other cameras to just show you just how hard that was into. See, the first part was fine, but it's the second part gets a big wiggle as a consequence of that one as well. And he is still within 1 second of Marcus Jensen as we're on to that number 8 of 20. You're talking about a Sunday drive, Paul. I'm literally just thinking in my head, every time someone does something stupid, James May, maniac.
Or me and you, maniac, and the Dodgems, but that's another story for another day.
Or the go-karts in my case over at Landshut.
Oh, you wouldn't get me on those go-karts. Those things were lethal. But yeah, Wallmeyer looking to keep the pressure on here then. 0.7 of a second between your two leaders. And again, just go over those curbs. And if you go back, if you go onto the RaceSpot YouTube channel, go back about 4 years. There was a touring car series we used to show on RaceSpot called the Champions of the Future. One that I know you really enjoyed. Johnny Simon really enjoyed that series as well, Will. And a certain commentator who's in this commentary box right now that isn't Will Vincent managed to flip his car on that first chicane. So it is possible to do that here, and mistakes can be made at that first chicane.
I have actually flipped my car at the first chicane in a number of different things as well. It is a horrible one. I just don't like that corner. I don't like the sawtooth curbs, to be honest here. Nothing to do with the cars. I think it's more of a thing about the track, and one would argue, Paul, it's one of the reasons why it's Bar that would go for the Belgian Grand Prix and not Circuit Zolder.
Absolutely, it's Belgium's second best track, isn't it? They called that for a reason. But it is a challenge, and it's got its own unique challenges, which is what makes it still an interesting one to race at, as Wallmeyer still within 4.5 tenths, so it's just gone up to 0.6 of a second now out of turn number 2. So he's staying in that 1 second gap there, and really just not able to quite get close enough to make real pressure onto Marcus, make him make a mistake, but he's close enough that Marcus will be looking in his mirrors thinking, gee, will you just leave me? Let me just drive on my own.
You say, though, about second best racetrack, all of a sudden I've got Alan Partridge into my head, and France's second best racing driver.
Do you know what? That's the second time I've thought of Alan Partridge today. Again, that's enough a story. As into the tight right-hander, out of there now, and they're catching up to a little bit of traffic in front of them. Stephen Hardy just come on to start his lap here, lap number 9 for him, whereas Marcus Jensen just coming out that final chicane to start lap 10, so he's almost going to put a lap on Stephen Hardy. It's not been Stephen's day today. He chose to start from the pit, or he might not have chosen to start from the pits, that's presuming things, Paul, but he started from the pits and he's just been dropping back and back and back all the way through this race. And this is one of the things with this championship, it's giving people of varying abilities to be able to compete, because at the end of the day, if you say, right, it's only limited to A-class drivers of a 4K iRacing, you're not opening it up to everybody, as we were mentioning earlier about the iRacing. You by having it such a wide open championship, it's giving people that opportunity.
It's also aspiration as well. The fact that they can participate in it this year. If they do the same series again next year, the first thing that everyone wants to compete against will be themselves. Be better than what they did last year. And I actually like the fact that it is open to so many different drivers, because, of course, when we had the Grand Prix side of things, Paul, we had ourselves 2 free splits a lot of the time. And that means that you'd get people, as is always the case in iRacing, who are matched to drivers similar to themselves. They may not race a Marcus Jensen every race. However, if there were a free split and you win one, you still want to race in McLaren Shadow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you don't consider consider yourself to be the fastest driver, like myself, then you know, you take every win that you can, to be honest. As James Wallace was a little bit slow. He was just going through the second chicane there. I thought he'd had a little bit of a mistake, but he hasn't, so he's carrying on, he's fine. This battle for the lead, still half a second between the two of them, and Manuel Menicini is going to be out of this race, and he's not had the best of days here. It was coming into the second chicane. Just trying to find out what's happened to him here.
Well, we've got a replay coming up, and one thing I will say very quickly about Hardy as well, the first chicane was miserable for Mancini, just to let you know, but the thing for Hardy is he's been about 6 seconds a lap slower than Marcus Jensen. That does create a bit of difficulty for the faster drivers because, well, that number 5 car literally just pulled off on the apex of that second chicane. Not sure what happened, unless he broke suspension on that first chicane, and I did say he got a big wallop.
Or maybe he had a hardware failure as well, because that's something, you know, a lot of people bemoan, like, oh, you know, we don't have that many car failures in iRacing, but you have hardware failures at home, you know, as well, so that you got to factor that in. Here's your battle for your race lead, by the way. 2/10 of a second down the inside of the chicane. They're going side by side. Jensen holding on to that lead for the time being, but Wallmeyer's not giving this one up, and Johannes is giving it absolutely everything as they start lap 12 of this race.
Into turn number 1. I was going to say, Paul, we're at the end of beat season now. We are into small season. And I think that McLaren could actually sell their car with a nice little optional extra to make s'mores, because you got the fire coming out the back of that car. Got to be used for some purpose, right? As Wallmeyer, he's got a fantastic run actually as they exit the right-hander, because Marcus Jensen just got himself all forms of loose for the central turn number 5. Wallmeyer can't quite get himself alongside.
But yeah, Jensen, the World Championship driver, knows how to position his car, and that's exactly what he did into that first chicane. Down into the second chicane, hard onto the brakes. Get your line right through here. Don't cut a course, because iRacing will give you a course cut penalty. And anybody who is new to iRacing, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. But secondly, iRacing will stop you cutting corners. It will give you a time penalty that you have to slow down the car until you have served that penalty. It's a way of managing the driving standards of cars. Another thing that manages the driving standards of the drivers is also the safety rating as well that we have here. So if you lose too much safety rating over a series of races, you end up losing a license level, and you end up not being able to compete in certain events on iRacing. Across the line they go, half a second between them at the moment. Wallmeyer just dropping back that little bit, maybe just setting up for a lap or two to make a move, or as Jensen here had the sort of like the wake-up call there and got the bit between the teeth.
Yeah, and also I was just trying to work out what would happen if Jensen does make a mistake, does end up losing the race lead. How will Johannes Wallmeyer actually deal with the pressure of Marcus Jensen coming from behind? Because that will be an immense one. We've got to remember as well, and you make a really good point about slow down penalties. I remember you talk about Champions of the Future. We had it there once. We've had it in Monday Night Skippies and Sunday Night Skippies. One driver, in the first couple of laps, if they get themselves a slow down penalty, they don't just lose a couple of positions. I've seen people lose 25 positions just trying to have to give that time back.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get it at the start of a race, it can be absolutely brutal, can those slow down penalties. It's a way of disincentivizing any sort of cut corners or attempted cheating, basically. So it's a really good way of stopping people from doing that, from cutting courses and being able to stick to the track limits. You learn where the track limits are and where iRacing allows you that little bit, because if you're not a racing driver, if you aren't pushing those track limits, you will.
It's like what was it, Singapore a couple of weeks ago for the Formula 1 Grand Prix, when they ended up painting a line which Charlie Whiting called the biggest waste of paint he's ever seen, thinking that drivers were going to abuse the track limits. So he's like, well, actually, no, we don't need to. Of course, different motor racing organisations around the world have different rules. The MSA in the UK, they are historically famous now for saying all 4 wheels must be inside the white line at all times. Compare that to NASCAR. Of course, you go to a track like Phoenix and NASCAR, Paul, you don't just have to state that the lines are optional, shall we say. Advisory. Because most of the drivers end up just cutting that dog leg.
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of times you're going around the oval, all of a sudden you see them coming right down onto the bottom of the apron, almost up to the wall, and then back up towards the final turn at Phoenix. So yeah, it's advisory, I think, is the best way of describing it here. 7/10 of a second between your leaders, so Jensen has got the hammer down a little bit here and is pushing on in towards this hairpin once again. But all it takes, with the gap being this, is one little mistake, and we've seen it nearly happen with Jensen, and he ends up losing the lead here. But Wallmeyer being patient, not making many mistakes either, just a couple of times running wide through turn number 3, Will. And again, it's just little things like that that could maybe cost a victory in this one, but second place, still good result.
Yeah, you've got to wonder still how hard he is pushing right now, Marcus Jensen. Let's see if we can get the lap times up now. Yeah, you can see that there's not much to choose between the two of them. It's 6/10 of a second on track, but Marcus Jensen, he's one of those drivers that he knows how to manage a race. There is more lap traffic ahead. This is going to be Adam Horwood, who is now 35 seconds behind James Wallace, and last time by was 7 seconds slower than Marcus Jensen and Wallmeyer. So, another situation that you don't want to catch him into the second chicane here, Paul, because otherwise you could end up in for a very rough ride.
Yeah, that's it. And Jensen knows about dealing with traffic, knows about when's good opportunities, when's not, and he's going to get caught up behind here into the second chicane. There's not a lot of room here. Oh, Horwood's made a mistake. He's having to back out of it. It's Jensen. Here comes Wallmeyer then onto the back of Jensen. They're still behind Horwood as they head up around the kink here to the left. Wallmeyer's getting boxed in. That's actually quite clever from Jensen to use that lap traffic to stop Wallmeyer pulling up alongside. So good thinking, good experience, but Wallmeyer's not giving this one up here into the chicane, the final chicane once again. We're coming up to the end of lap 15 here, so we're going to be 5 laps to go. And out that chicane, Jensen just gets a little bit of a better run out of there. Wallmeyer is running out of opportunities, shall I say.
Well, yeah, and I would say one thing. We talk about upsets. Yesterday, Old Dominion was able to get themselves a victory over ranked Virginia Tech in college football. That is kind of what this victory would be for Johannes Wallmeyer right now. He's battling a world championship driver in Marcus Jensen, and he's held his own so far over the first 3 quarters of this motor race. If he can get himself past, that'll be the biggest upset of the weekend, probably alongside Old Dominion.
Yeah, absolutely! Oh, wow, well held, Johannes. That was trying absolutely everything, and again, it's the risk that you take going over that curb at that first chicane. That second curb can be brutal, and we've seen how it nearly really spat him out into the wall there, as I'm sure you've got a replay it, Will.
We have. I want to see one more look if possible. That's exactly what happened. We're just going to zoom it in, just catching the sawtooth curb, and that just upset the balance of that race car no end. How he's still able to hold on, I don't know, but for the first time, that gap now is up over 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. Jensen will be breathing a sigh of relief there. It's not been all his own way here today, but Johannes Wallmeyer really putting in a good show for us here. Across the line they go. Start of lap 17 in this event here, and time is running out for Johannes. He's going to have to pull out some monster laps here, and we've not really seen him being able to do that. That last lap with that mistake cost him 1.1 seconds there, so it just goes to show one little mistake and it could cost you the opportunity of going for victory here. But 1.4 seconds is now the gap between your lead two. I just want to mention as well, it's been a very quiet race for Jace Merrick in 3rd place, 20 seconds behind Johannes, and Gabriel Ramos in 4th place ahead of James Wallace, who's 5th. And as we said, the 2 lap drivers of Adam Horwood and Stephen Hardy still running out there, still in this event. They're going to score some points here today, that's for sure. But they're down there 6th and 7th with 2 retirements so far in this event. But yeah, that gap now is just increasing. You just feel, Will, or at least I feel here, that Johannes has lost the slipstream, and maybe that's what was keeping Johannes so close to Marcus.
Or Marcus Jensen just saying, okay, you've had your fun now, off I go. Also, worth noting last time by 130.686 there for Johannes, and 129.549 for Marcus Jensen. I want to see their lap times the next time they come past the start-finish line, because that could be really interesting to keep an eye out on. As here is James Wallace, having a look at him. He runs in 5th place right now. And you got to say, for the drivers who have completed 20 laps almost around Zolder, it is a hard race. We lost 2 drivers here today. Mancini, he had himself what we believe is a technical issue. That was down at the 2nd chicane. And we had the number 4 car. He was out early, Paul, but he had damage coming to the green.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying about those lap times, 29.4 from Marcus Jensen, whereas it's a 30.6 for Johannes Wallmeyer. 1.2 seconds slower that last lap. So Johannes, I think it's just, that's the end of it now. That's the end of the challenge. Just keep yourself in 2nd place, get yourself a good result here, and before you know it, it'll be the end of the race. We're on the 3 to go here at the moment. We'll be heading towards the penultimate lap here. And Will, actually, this race has actually gone by pretty quick. We were worried that there wasn't going to be much action, but between the 2 of those at the front, we have seen plenty of, maybe not wheel-to-wheel, door-to-door stuff, but still an intriguing battle that has just fizzled out, unfortunately.
Well, we almost didn't have a race.
Adam Horwood has had a spin. And that is after the 2nd chicane, after the right-hander after the 2nd chicane. And it's coming out of that right-hander. The number 7 car. Not been the best of days for Adam here. Came around that right-hander and just got out onto the grass.
Yeah, and there's a look at it. Pushing wide. Spinning around into the tyre barrier, hard on there for Adam Horwood. It's so easy to do in one of these GT cars. It's one of these things, you've done so many laps around here, you think you know exactly where your acceleration points are, but the dust that gets pulled onto this track, Paul, does eventually mean that your luck sometimes runs out, because of course the track changes lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Dynamic track, you know, you can do all the testing on your own that you want, but you're not going to rubber in the track or bring dirt onto the track to the same extent as having 7 or 8 cars on track at once. So you can only do as much testing as you want on your own, but really you want to have a test session where there's multiple people in for at least half an hour to 3/4 of an hour, as we are heading towards the start of the final lap of this event. So yeah, the dynamic track certainly does change the grip levels as you go along, and as you say, if drivers are making mistakes and they're going off track, they're bringing that dirt back onto track when they return to it. But Marcus Jensen, just 1 more lap. The white flag is out for Marcus.
Yep, so 1 more lap to go then for Marcus Jensen. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, after this broadcast, we got ourselves 2 races here in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. And we're going to be going to the road course and the oval here, Paul. It's a unique doubleheader in the 2K World Cup.
And it's always a great event as the 2K World Cup as well. Really enjoy that, so make sure you check that one out because it's going to be a cracking race. Will Vincent and Lorenzo Bonda are going to be on the stream for that one. But halfway round the final lap here then, Marcus Jensen into that first chicane. Clips the curb nicely, out that chicane. Up and over that rise, down the hill, around that left-hander, get onto the brakes. It's a tricky braking zone into the 2nd chicane, but gets it nicely done. It's a bit of a bump there in the middle of the first curb. Around those right-handers, through the 2nd right-hander here. Just a few corners left in this one. Left kink here, absolutely flat out. Up into 5th gear now, down to 2nd gear. Into this hairpin, down to 1st gear for Marcus here. Out of the hairpin, get on the power, change up the gears. Through the left and the right towards the final chicane. And he can almost taste that victory. 2 more corners, now just 1 more corner, and it's going to be Marcus Jensen for the 2nd week in a row here in the McLaren MP4-12C GT3 to take the win in the McLaren Shadow. What a good victory for him. Johannes Wallmeyer, hats off to Johannes. Great race, just fell off towards the end there for them. 3rd place is going to be Jace Merrick just into this final chicane here now. Through the left, through the right. Onto the power. It's been a quiet race for Jace, and he's done a good job there to take 3rd place across the line. We've got Gabriel Ramos is going to be the next driver in terms of positions, but it's going to be Adam Hallwood who's going to make it across the line first. And a bit of a difficult day for Adam and also for Stephen Hardy, who's heading out that final hairpin now. Gabriel Ramos right behind Stephen there, lap down is Stephen, but Ramos 4th place again. Another quiet race really for Ramos in this one, not really being close to anyone. 40 seconds behind your 3rd place driver, comes across the line to take that 4th place. James Wallace not that far behind in 5th place, and as we say, Adam Hallwood and Stephen Hardy have finished already. So let's take you through those final standings here, and it is Marcus Jensen 2 weeks in a row in this McLaren GT3 car taking victory, both Brands Hatch and now Circuit Zolder. Johannes Wallmeyer in 2nd place with Jace Merrick in 3rd. Gabriel Ramos 4th place, a minute and 7 behind your race winner, with James Wallace 5th. A lap down for Adam Hallwood and Stephen Hardy, and then 2 retirements, Manuel Menicini and Marc Vallot. They're your 2 retirements from this race. Just well, before we go, remember that we have got 2K World Cup coming up very shortly, in just about 10 minutes or so, so make sure you check out that broadcast here on the iRacing Esports Network. But from Will Vincent and from myself, Paul Smith, thank you very much for joining us here for McLaren Shadow. We'll see you again next week for yet more action from this series. Good night.